Alright, so welcome to a new video. Today we are going to write the other half of the backend, which is left currently. Previously we wrote the authentication part, and I remember some few of the steps I missed, like the logout functionality I haven't added. And next was the avatar, which user needs to create in order for us to show the users in the front end. I'll add that part also. And apart from that, we haven't created the JWT token, which user needs to transfer in the front end in order for confirming the login or logout functionalities. So these things will be done in the first half, like within 15 to 20 minutes. And after that, what we are going to do is we'll be writing the conversation models and the schema diagrams related to conversations and all. So after that, I think this backend section will be completed, and I'm trying to cover it in this video also only. If any small minor details, if those things will be left, then we'll cover it in the front end section. Otherwise, the major part will be completed hopefully today. So without wasting any time, let's jump right into it. So yeah, this is the sign up functionality which we wrote previously. And the one thing which was left was creating an avatar. So I have one like way of creating this avatar. If you want, you can create like you can store an image of the user, and that can be displayed directly. If you want, you can store it in Google Drive and all, and get the generator link which can be stored in the database, or you can use any cloud service. My idea is to generate images directly for any profile. So I have a URL named robohash.org. It automatically generates the uh, profile images based on their name, which has been transferred. For example, if I go to this URL, if I hope it is visible to you, this robohash/Maya. I have given the name Maya. Will generate this image. If I go to other name /Rohan, we'll have this image. You can take any other name like Jacob, Jacan, or whatever, and you will get your desired URL, like profile image, which can be stored in the database and showed separately. The reason why I'm using it is very obvious, that I am not storing my images or files, or I'm not using any file storage services. So instead, I'm using this alternative. So how you're going to do this? How you're going to include it in the database? First thing, we have to write it in the models. We have to change the schema diagram. We have to add new um, key value pair, which is the URL of the profile. So simply write profile, which will be of type string, and it will be required true. So let's include this in the um, index of no authentication part. So let's include when the user gets created, when we found any user. If while signing up, it means the user already is there. If not, we are going to create the user using this link, and you can store this link in the env file. Currently I'm just storing it here only. URL profile URL equals this link only till this much. I hope it's visible to you guys. So this profile URL has been stored here. Let's create the profile of the user. How we are going to create it? So the password and all have been created. We just need, when the user gets created, we just need to pass one more value, which is profile, and the profile will be profile URL, and username. So instead of writing directly like this, what we can do is we can write it like this: URL, what happened, L, and slash the username. I hope it's clear. And assignment expected. Mhm. Okay, username, not as like this, but more like this. Yeah. So the profile will be created like this only, and this URL will be used to showcase the user profile in the front end. Let's try to run this and test it on our Postman. Npm run dev. We are in the server, right? Yeah. And we are connecting. It is connected. So as you can see, let's open up our Postman and check it if it is working properly or not. So we have this already. Let's create a new user with name uh, Yash 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 Singer, and singer@gmail.com, test 1234, and profile 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 will automatically be generated. We don't need to pass it, right? Let's run it, and we have it, but we didn't got the profile because we haven't called it. We have only created it. So in order for us to call a profile, we have to call the profile also. Profile will be profile.url, whatever this is. So profile new user dot profile, because it is not being stored here only. So full name should, we should not like when we are calling this full name without passing any like constraints or something, what we are calling as, we are calling this value full name, which we have passed from the front end. We don't need that. We need the backend value. So in order for us to get the backend value, we need to pass new user, which has been created, dot full name. Similarly, for username, we'll be having new user dot username, and email new user dot email. Let's run again, creating a new user. Jacob JC and Jacob, whatever, Jacob. Let's run it, and hopefully we'll get all the data from the backend. Yep, we have it. This is the URL. Will be having an image. This is the image. So let's yeah. All right, so what we can do is we can move forward now. We have stored the profile image. What we need to do is, this has been created. Now we have to generate a token. So let's generate a token. Okay, before generating token, I'll like explain you why do we need to generate any token. What happens is, when we call the any while signing up any user from the front end, we are going to call the backend and the backend will provide us any token, so as to validate that this user belongs to the backend, is present in the backend. And if that user has already logged in previously and we have closed our browser and all, that token would have been stored in the cookies, right? So in order for us to not log in again, unwanted login functionality, what we can do is use the cookies and tell that we are already logged in, and that cookie will validate the login functionality. So let's generate the token. How we're going to generate token? Let's do it. um, so we have a new user, right? And let's, if the new user gets generated, before saving, we'll check if the new user has been generated or not, to make sure it's not null. And in this, we will um, create a function. We'll create a utility function which will be generate token. Okay, we have already created it. I've already created it. I'll explain it to you right now. So what happens is, yeah, so in this, what we are going to pass is new user. That's the new user which has been created. And in MongoDB, every values, key value pairs which has been stored has a separate underscore ID key, right? That key can be used directly here, and we haven't created it. It's MongoDB who has already given it to the like the values. So in order for us to use it, what we are going to do is directly call out underscore ID. We are going to pass this value. I'll show you why. And apart from that, we are going to pass res. So why we are using res? Actually, when we call any cookies, if we want to store any value, what we do is we call out res dot cookies, right? And store the key value pair here only, like JWT, and pass the values like that. And in the generate token, while generating token, will be storing the cookies. So that's why we are passing res in order to create res dot cookies. Let's go to generate token. I've already written this function. I think I should have written it right in front of you. The code got mixed up, I guess. That's why it's all right. I'll explain it to you. So what happens is, the function which we called, we have already created it here, right? And in this, we are passing two values: the user ID from MongoDB, which is pre-built, and the res, through which we are going to create the cookie and store it in the cookies. So first we have to create a token, generate token, which we are here for. And in order for us to use, we have to use JWT from JSON Web Token. Now, if you haven't installed JSON Web Token, I would recommend you to use npm I JSON Web Token. I've already done it, so I don't have to. And then import JWT from JSON Web Token. And then what we have to do is, you have to sign function, and in that we'll pass the user ID which we have created here, like which we have got from MongoDB. And then we'll create a JWT secret key. The secret key we are going to create ourselves. So this random secret phrase I have created, my JWT secret phrase, you can store it directly. I mean, I would highly recommend it not to store it here. In fact, you should store it in .env file. I'll store it in the future. And before storing it, I'm just showing it to you guys here only. That's why I've used it here, JWT secret phrase. Then you have to use it here, and then we have to pass how many days you have to use this, or keep it valid, keep this cookie valid. I'm keeping it for 15 days. So this token will be valid for 15 days. um, yep. So after that, after creating the token, what we have to do is, we have to pass the JWT token as cookie in the response. So res.cookie, which I told, will be having a key of JWT. It will be stored in the cookies of browser, and the token will be stored like this token. And the amount of duration which you have to store will be passed in milliseconds here. And then we'll be having some constraints like HTTP only, true. There are many other constraints also. I haven't added it for simplicity. And yeah, this is simply how we created the cookie. We don't have to return the token. I mean, you can, but we are not using it here. So we called out generate token in order to create the JSON Web Token. After that, we'll save it here only. So we are keeping it constrained that if the user gets created, then only we'll save it. It's just an extra layer of check. So I think this is pretty clear. The last thing which is left, I'll show you. Um, the last thing which is left is the logout. Let's log out. Let's write the logout functionality. Export const logout. We are all doing these functionalities in the auth.controllers, right? And in this we are going to pass request response. We don't need actually these things, but okay. So for logout, it's very simple. Like we just need to, what we need to do is we need to clean up the cookies. That's it. So that the user who gets validated every time he logs into the browser with the cookies, he won't be able to get validated. That's the first step. Let's clean up the cookies. Res dot cookie, right? And in this, what we are going to do is the JWT which we have generated here, this one, instead of token, what we are going to do is we are going to pass an empty string, and we'll set the max age which we added it here. We'll set the max age to 0 simply, and it gets completed. And then after doing this, we'll do status of 200 means successful.json with the message of that logged out successfully, right? Cool. And if this try block fails, we'll have a catch of error, and it's simple, like similar to this. Let's just copy and paste it, and we'll have error in logout controller. So I think it's clear. Let's try to test it. So we are in our sign up functionality, right? And the whenever someone logs in, I believe, yeah, okay, all right. So we have it in the sign up. We are in the sign up. Let's create a user, and when we create a user, we are calling this function, right? This generate token. When a new user gets created, we'll generate a token. So when generated, we are expecting that generated token should be shown in this cookies. So let's generate a new value which is new user, whatever, and random new user. So with this, we are expecting a cookies here. Let's see. Yeah, new user has been generated, and we got a cookie which is this. As you can see, the key value is JWT which we stored right here only. When generating, we had JWT as the value which is stored, and this cookie has been like the token has been created, and it is stored in the cookies of the browser. This is just the like skeleton structure for testing of the front end. When we'll create the front end, I'll show you like how this exactly works in the browser. For now, testing just to showcase that the backend is working perfectly without using front end. So this was the generate token. Let's try to log out. So we are in this, and I think I haven't added the yeah, we haven't I have to add the logout also. Auth routes dot post logout logout slash logout actually. Let's run this in this, and what our expectations are that when we call out logout, the cookies will be deleted, right? Let's try to run it. And yep, logged out successfully, and cookies we don't have. So logout functionality is also working. Now our authentication is complete. Now what we have to do is we have to write the conversation a part of the users, like messaging, how user transfers all the messages, the to get all the messages and all of those functionalities. And it's quite straightforward. Let's start running it. So in the controllers, I'll create a new uh, file named message.controllers controllers.js, right? And for this message controller, we'll have a model which will be any name, message only. Let's keep it message model.js. Cool. The like structure will be same like this only, but the values will be different. Let's write the schema first before writing the functions. Let's clean it up everything, and let's write the message model, how we are going to message. So um, okay, first is quite simple. We are importing the mongoose because we are using it from mongoose. Why it is not showing? Okay, let's close this first, and then we'll have mongoose schema. Not message schema, sorry. Schema equals new mongoose, not mongo goose dot schema. You don't have to, I'll repeat it again, that you don't have to run the learn this structure, but learn the concept, not learn, understand. So yeah, we'll have a sender, and let's name it sender id, and it will have of type. This is quite important actually. It is actually kind of interconnected kind of schema. So what we have to do is we'll have a sender id will be of type a different type which is already present in the schema, like the user. So what we have to do is we have to give the type of sender id as a schema, not any string but a schema. And what schema? This user schema. So how we are going to do it? Because the sender who is there, he or she will be a user. So in order for us to make the type schema which is already there, the user schema, we have to give the type. What we'll do is we'll write mongoose dot schema, right? The schema which we are doing, dot types dot object id. Yeah. And now we have to refer it. Reference will be of user, and user is already there actually, this. So I hope it's clear. And it is required, right? Receiver spelling is correct, I guess. Yeah. And it will be same, because why not? Both are users only. So schema, we are having a type of schema, that's why we passed it like this. And object id with the reference of user. Sender, receiver, and then text. That's it. Text is simple type string, type string, sorry, string. And you cannot send any empty message, right? So let's keep it required as true. So we also need the user to show when the message was delivered, or when the user received any messages, all the timestamps, right? So in order for us to use timestamp, what we have to do is we are going to use and the object has timestamps to be true. So when this schema will be stored, the message will be stored at that the timestamps will be stored as well. So that's why we are using timestamp. Now what we have to do is we have to create the model mongoose dot model. Model spelling is incorrect, so please correct it. I've kept it right like this for now. In the next video I'll correct it, and we'll call it as singular, and it will be changed in the backend, the MongoDB, and we are passing this message schema. Let's export it. Export default message clear. So things are quite decent for now. Let's use it. Let's write the controllers in order for us to use it. In the controllers we have it already, so let's go to the controllers and what should be the functionalities? uh, Send messages, get messages, and what happened? My use, yeah, send messages, get messages, and then anything else? We need all the users also, right? And the for the sidebar, for example, this is a chat application. If you see, if this is a chat application, we'll be having users displayed in the left side, right? So get users, these functionalities needs to be added. So first let me write it down. Get messages, send messages, get users for side panel. Cool. Let's write all of these starting with get messages. Export const get messages equals request response. Next is not being used. I'll show you why when we will use next. I'll tell you. And try catch. So try catch, then it should be async by obvious means. And now what we have to do is we have to get the ID of the user. So let's get the id equals request dot, we are getting the messages, right? So messages will be for all, like receiver and sender, like my messages and their messages also, right? So we are doing is request dot params, and in the params will have a id will be let's name is chat user id, right? With whom I'm chatting. So when we click any user on the side panel, suppose I clicked any user, their respective id will be shown in the parameters, like the url is like http colon slash slash, like my chat app slash this number is the user id. This user id will be present in the params as id. So here it is like id, right? So in order for us to use this id, we'll call out params, and we are renaming it to chat user id. So let's use this. Yeah, this is users id. I'll call my id const my id equals request. How we're going to do it? Request dot user. I haven't stored user, right? So how you're going to get this? This is the time when we should introduce middleware. Let's introduce middleware. Yeah, this is the time. Actually, we cannot get my own user ID before, uh, like we can, but this is the best time to introduce middlewares also. So before moving forward, let's write the middleware part. What are middlewares? So middlewares are functions which has to be run before certain conditions uh, are met. Like in order for us to run further, we have to make sure this functionality is run, or these conditions are met. That's why we use middlewares. And when do we need this middleware? For example, someone wants to log in, like someone wants to write a messages, or someone wants to get all the data, all the users which are present. If they want to get all the users which are present, in order for us to in order for them to get those data, it is quite obvious and primary condition that they should be logged in, right? So this is the minimum condition that should be done. And what we can do is, whenever someone logs in, like whenever a user logs in, we'll take that user's ID and store it in request.user here, this one. So before using this, we'll store it because we don't have it right now. And where we are going to store it? In the middleware. How we are going to use the middleware? Let's go to the routes. We only have authentication routes. Let's create the message routes also right now. We have message.routes.js, right? Similar to auth routes. Let's copy it and use it here only. Now in this, we are calling out the right. So in order for us to get, we are using get messages, right? Get messages, and this is a get request, means we are getting the data. So let's use, instead of post, use get request. And what should be the endpoint? Endpoint should be get messages, right? So in order for us to get messages, we need to use middleware. Where this middleware will be used? In the middle. Which middle? This middle here. Here we are going to create a middleware, like auth middleware, and then we are going to create this middleware, and let's create it in the server only, and name this middleware, and name will be auth dot middleware dot js. Dot middleware is just a name annotation which I'm using. It's a good practice to differentiate what values you're using or what files you're using. So let's write this. So what we are doing is, we are allowing that this forget as this route, before going into this final one, we need this route to be protected, to be honest. So in the auth middleware, we'll create a function like export const auth middleware equals async, obviously, request response. What? Let me complete it then only. And then we'll be using next also. Now we'll be having next function usage. I'll show you why we are using at the last. So try catch, quite obviously, most of the cases we are using it. And catch will have all the same controllers values, like in the, like this. Let's just copy it and paste it here. Error in the authentication middleware. right? Now in the auth middleware try, what we have to do is we'll have first the token. Like in order for us to check whether the user is signed in or not, we'll use the token which we have created already in the, where it is, generate token, right? This one. So we'll check it. Const token equals request rest dot cookies dot JWT. This was the name, right? That's why. If there is no token, it means the user is not there. It means that user is not logged in. Res dot res dot status of 400, right? And dot JSON message will be of like unauthorized, no token present, right? After that, what we have to do is, if token is present, we have to decode it, because that token is present in the form, like the form which you saw it already. So we have to decode it, and JWT dot verify, we are going to verify the token with the JWT value which we had in the generate token, this one. So let's use it here also. I'm just using it in all the places, but I strictly recommend you to use it directly in the .env. I'll after writing the code, I'll store it in the in .env, and I'm strictly requesting you to store your JWT secret phrase in the JWT only, because when you upload your files on GitHub, .env files should not get uploaded. That's why this should be stored there only. Otherwise, anyone can see this secret phrase. So what we have to do is we have to verify the token with the JWT secret phrase which we have. So JWT secret key, we are comparing this, right? So as to make sure that the token, like which we have already stored in the cookie, it is real or valid or not, with this with the secret key which we already had previously. Let's check if it is not decoded. Let's name it decoded. It means that same thing, unauthorized, uh, invalid token, right? And if it is valid, then what we have to do is we will const, we'll create a new value named user, and we'll call res.status of 200, and then instead of directly passing it, now let's do one thing. We'll create the, like we'll get the user first. Like if I'm logged in, I'll get my details first. Const user equals await user, the model which we were using previously in the authentication, dot find by id. And which id? This id, you decoded, this one. And this decoded will be having a user id actually. I'll show you why. Because when we are verifying, we are getting the data from here only, right? Response user id which we are passing. So this user id which we have passed while generating a token will check, like will get the data from the backend through this user id only, which we passed in the generate token. See, everything is connected, you just need to understand the code. So this user id will be used here, where we got auth middleware. Yeah, decoded dot user id. This user id is already present in the decoded, right? We are verifying it through JWT token and all, and we'll get the decoded value. So let's we'll get all the data through this, and the data which we'll get will contain password also. We don't need the password. So in order for us to remove the password from the find by id method, what we can do is we have a function called select, and we'll pass minus password, so this key will be removed. That's why we used minus password, and we'll get the user id, right? So let's say that if we haven't got the user, then we'll say that user not found. It's too much layer of checks, but it is important. User not found. We are creating things like we are here to reject everything. That's why we have so many layers. And if the values which we get are perfect, then only it will get filtered through all these constraints. So after user gets created, we'll pass the request.user into, like, we'll get the user and we'll pass it to request.user, which we got it here only. So this auth middleware should be used in this routes, where it is message.routes auth middleware. So before getting any messages, what we'll do is we'll call out auth middleware to verify that I am logged in. If I'm logged in, my credential will be passed into request.user. So request.user has my credentials like my name, email, uh, removed password is not there, but everything else, profile picture and everything. So now this request users can be used to get my id. How we are going to do it? Let's do it. We have, yeah, now we can use my id equals request dot user, right? So let's after this, let's create message, like the messages. We are getting all the messages. Let's get all the message. Const get, not get, but messages equals await message, the model which we created, schema, and we'll find all the values where I am the sender and the user which I have clicked is the receiver, or I'm the receiver and the user who has clicked is the sender. You see, in both the scenarios, we are using or, like the or condition. So in order for us to use or condition, what we'll do is we'll use or like this, and in this constraint, we'll have sender ID as my ID, which is there, and receiver ID as you chat user ID, whatever. Otherwise, if there is one more scenario in which sender ID is chat user ID and receiver ID is my ID. In both cases, give me all the messages in which both the conditions satisfies. So sender ID and receiver ID, where do we get this? If you go into the message model right now which we wrote, we have sender ID and receiver ID. Both the conditions should meet, and every values will be stored here in the form of array. So we got the values, right? We got the values. Let's pass the um, dot JSON of all, like it's already an array, so messages. So this was the function. Let's just console log that if there is an error in set get messages controller. And what's the error dot message, and we'll have rest dot status of like 400, no, 500. There are other like status codes also. You can go into the documentation and find it and understand about it. We'll be having internal server error. Cool. So we have get messages also. Now let's write the function for send messages, and then we'll have you send messages, and then we'll get the get user for side panel. Let's write send messages. Now it's quite simple, like export const send messages equals request. Wait, one thing is left actually. I haven't told you about this, but when using middleware, like we're using it here, we haven't used next function, which I told you. I apologize. I'll show you how we are going to use. If every functionality gets triggered and it works perfectly, what we'll do is we'll call next function. And what does it denote? This denote that the next function, like the simultaneous, the other part of the function which is left, not the other part, but this, if you go to routes, the other next function, which is this, allow this function to run. That's it. That's the only functionality of next. If everything works perfectly, we'll call next function, and what it says that allow this function, the next function up next to me, allow this function to run. That's it. So I hope this was clear up until now. Let's write the send messages. How we're going to send message. Simple try catch, and if try catch, then async, and try catch. But first we'll get the text. Let me keep it here only so it will be clear for everyone. So not the routes but the models. Yeah, so we are getting the text first, the obvious one. The In order for us to get the values, request.body, it is present in the body, and then we'll have id from request.params. It is similar to the previous one, this id, and request dot body we can get the text. Like the front end, the user will give any text message, right? That in the backend will come in the form of request dot body. That's how we are taking the text in the backend. And after this, what we'll do is we'll pass id as, like we'll rename it as receiver id again, so as to make it everything clear. And then the sender id will be the same, which will be request dot, not the body but the this one, request dot user. Why? Because here also while sending we need to check whether user is logged in. How we're going to check the user is logged in? Through middleware, which we wrote previously. So we have again a value called send message, and it will be a post request because we are sending, and it will again have this authentication middleware just to check whether user is logged in. So request.user dot, I mean, you can directly take the underscore id which is there in the user, like the MongoDB already creates this underscore id which I told you previously. So you can directly use it here, and because we are going to use it, and we are going to create a new message equals new message, And in this we are going to pass sender id, uh, what else, receiver id and text. That's it. Receiver id and text. That's it. That's the only thing. And then we are going to await new message dot save. That's it. And after that, there will be a separate section here. We are going to use socket.io, and I'll show you why we are going to use socket.io in order for us to make sure that the real-time chat functionality should work perfectly. That's why we'll use socket.io, but not today. I am focusing on writing the controllers part. After that, we'll write the socket.io in the last, when we'll connect the front end together. And after this, what we'll do is we'll write, like, message has been saved, right? So let's pass the success message, like the message. New message, new message. And the error part will be like this: send message controller. Cool. Send message is also done. The last part is left, which is get user. Let's check this if it is working or not, right? It should be tested. So let's create a new post request. Suppose this one I'm using, and in this I'll rename it send message API, and I think I haven't added it in the index. So it's not just the routes where we have to add this, we have to add this um, routes in the index also. We have only added this one, authentication. So app.use slash API slash messages, right? And in this we are going to use routes messages, since we are using not auth routes but message routes, and the same name will be used here, message routes. And we are importing it from import routes messages. Yeah, like directly use this only instead of renaming it. Yeah, I think it will work now. API slash messages slash send message. Okay, let's complete the URL, npm run dev, and we have an error. Why? I'm sure it is because we are, let me check, cannot find module. Okay, controllers, right? Okay, we have error here because of .js. .js still okay. Model, we are importing model somewhere. I think it's in middleware, that's why. Middleware, yep. .js, still one is left. We have made a lot of import errors, I guess. To check manually, let me check every place. The controllers, everything is good here. Auth route is not defined. And where it is? Auth route start. Oh man, this one. All right, yeah, things are working now. Let's use the postman now. And what will be the endpoints? API slash messages slash send message. And in order for us to send a message, we need the parameters, the URL, like the ID of the users, right? We get message and send message. We need to pass send message here. All right, things are good. In order for us to get the parameter, what we are going to do is we'll go to the MongoDB. And the MongoDB, I don't know why it doesn't store the data whenever I log in, even though everything is there. That's then also. Let me know if you guys also face this. Even if you're logged in, you still have to log in again. MongoDB itself doesn't log in perfectly. All right, so we have browse collections, and in the test we'll have users, the user which we have created. I'll show you all the user created. These were previous values, and Yash was created today. Yash Singer, Jacob JC, new user which we created recently, and the ID which I told you. This ID, this is the ID needed. Suppose I am logged in as a user. Let's log in as a user first, right? Before sending message, it will be checking whether we are, let's send it before logging in, so that we can test whether the middleware is working perfectly or not, because middleware will check whether the cookies is present or not, right? And currently we don't have any cookie, so let's check it. Body, we have all these values. I don't know why. Raw, let's keep it raw. Yeah. And send message, we don't even have to send anything. Let's just check. Could not send request. All right, we have could not send request. It should have thrown error instead. And oh, localhost, it should be 8000, right? It's running on 8000. Sorry, the port number was wrong. Okay, internal server error. Let's see what's the error. We have error as cannot read properties of undefined reading JWT. Yes, authentication middleware. it's it's quite obvious that it won't be able to read the values because the values are not stored, right? So that's why. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's write the code completely and test it in the after writing all the code, like send messages, get messages and all, because it will get cluttered otherwise. Export const, what was left actually? Send messages, get messages, get user for side panel. Okay, let's write the code completely, then we'll test if we have time, because I think it's I've already taken a lot of time today. Okay, let's write get user for side bar or side panel. All right, async request response. It's quite simple, get request. So we'll just do try catch, and error will be like this, and we'll have const logged in user, like the user who is logged in, and we'll get it through request dot user, the middleware dot underscore id. Next we'll have filtered, like the user, we have to uh, get the users which are present, right? And we have to filter it because we don't need the password of all the users. So we'll do filtered users equals await users user dot, I hope I've imported it correctly. Yeah, user dot find all the users, right? So underscore user, all the users but except myself. Like in the panel, I don't have to show my own values, right? When you go into WhatsApp, you don't see a panel where your name is there, right? You don't have to message yourself. So in order for us to remove ourselves from the side panel, what we'll do is we'll write id should not be equal to, not equal to any ne logged in user. This id should not be there, and all will select again and remove the password. Hope it makes sense. And after that, we'll just pass status of 200.json with filtered users. That's the thing. All the users will be passed into this. I have some doubts that this functionality might be having some a minor error, which I need to check before showing it to you guys. So that's why I haven't tested it right now, and prioritized this code completion first so that you can understand. And after this, what we can do is in the I'll create one more video in which I'll finalize the backend. It won't be a long video, it will be like 15-20 minutes video, and the backend functionality will be having a separate testing through Postman. We'll have a separate testing through Postman, and I'll complete if any functionalities is left. I'll complete it, and the socket IO part will be added in the last section when we'll complete the front end, because we have to just all we need to do is just to check the real-time chat application is working perfectly or not. Like if you messaged the user, the receiver user should get the message on the real time. That's what we have to check. What we can do is we can check it in the final code, like the last part of it, and we'll include AI into it also. So that is also one of the features which we need to do. And apart from that, this was our today's target, to complete all these functionalities and explain you the code base and the middleware. I hope you liked the video and found it informative, and if you do, make sure to like and subscribe, and yeah, follow for more. See you in the next one. Thank you.